There lived a man named Abraham Edward. He was an accountant, not the kind that counted coins only, but one who counted conscience and measured truth. He was not rich, yet he was not poor. He owned little, but he feared God greatly. In a land where men bowed their heads before gold and called it honor, Abraham stood upright. Even when the world bent like grass before the storm, his colleagues called him the Holy One, some in jest, some in quiet envy. For Abraham could be hungry and still refuse bread that was stolen. One day, in the office of marble floors and silent air conditioners, his superior, a man whose smile was like oil on water, called him in. He told him a parable, greater than have you heard the tale of the rat and the elephants. Abraham had not. The man continued, his voice smooth as silk but sharp beneath. A company of elephants went to swim in the river. A rat stood on the path and tried to stop them, saying the river belonged to his father. But can a rat stop elephants? You see, my friend, you are the rat, and we are the elephants. These figures on this paper must be signed. Do it, and your path will shine bright. Abraham looked at the man, his heart still, his face calm like the morning after rain. Then he said quietly, greater than sir, I am a child of God. I cannot sign what is false. A silence fell in the room, the kind that humbles even the air. The man's smile faded. Do you know why your salary has not been paid for 4 months? He said coldly. Abraham said nothing, because rats that fight elephants do not eat from the same forest. He was dismissed that day. But Abraham left with peace in his heart, a peace that no elephant could trample. That night, as the city lights flickered like restless spirits, Abraham knelt by his bed and prayed. His house was old, his children asleep, their bellies light, their future uncertain, but he thanked God still, for a faith that had not broken. He prayed for his son, Joshua, whose heart had grown far from the ways of light. He prayed for David, his younger boy, whose eyes still held innocence and hope. And he prayed for himself, that his hands, though empty, would remain clean. When he rose, the wind blew softly through the cracked window, and he thought he heard a whisper. The fire may burn, but I am still with you, outside. The moon looked down like a silver coin tossed into heaven's palm, and Abraham slept, not as one defeated, but as one kept. Joshua was the storm Abraham could not calm. Where his father's life was straight as the staff of Moses, Joshua's was bent like a yam stalk beaten by rain. He had been bright once, sharp-minded, full of promise, but when his mother died, something in him broke. He had prayed for her healing until his eyes turned red with tears. But death, that cruel visitor, came anyway. From that day, Joshua's faith drowned in silence. He began to live as though heaven had turned its back. Nights found him in places where songs of darkness replaced hymns and laughter hid shame. He drank with friends who called sin adventure and mocked anything holy. When Abraham tried to speak, Joshua would raise his voice. Where was your God when mother died? And Abraham, with trembling lips, would answer, he was the same place he was when his own son died. But Joshua would not listen. Pain had become his armor. The father prayed still, prayed until words turned to tears, and tears became wordless groans. Then one day, as dawn broke over Adullam, Joshua met Esther. She was bright-eyed, confident, a girl who carried the air of someone raised among kings. They met on the university campus, a meeting as ordinary as sunlight, but God had hidden purpose beneath it. She spoke of peace and light, and he mocked her at first. But her words lingered, like a song he could not forget. You cannot hear his voice, she told him one afternoon beneath the old almond tree, because you are not following him. Joshua frowned. Who are you to say that? I am a princess, she said, smiling softly, not of this world, but of his kingdom. Joshua laughed, but it was a laugh that trembled. For though he mocked her, something inside him, long buried, began to stir. That night, he could not sleep. The words come to me echoed through his dreams. And somewhere far away, his father knelt once more, Whispering the same name, Jesus, their prayers met in the unseen air between heaven and earth. The morning that broke over Abraham's roof came not with singing birds, but with the sound of knocking, loud, angry, unrelenting. It was the landlord, a man whose heart was ruled by figures, not mercy. "Today is the day of reckoning," he shouted from the compound gate. "Bring my rent, or I bring your things into the street." Abraham opened the door slowly, his face calm, though his heart trembled. He tried to explain the unpaid salary, the promises from the office, but the man's ears were deafened by greed. When he finally left, his words remained behind like flies over a wound. "Poverty runs in your blood, and in the blood of those yet unborn." Abraham stood still. His younger son, David, clung to his leg. "Daddy," he whispered, "where will we go if he throws us out?" Abraham knelt beside him. He looked into the boy's eyes, the same eyes that reminded him of his late wife. "The birds of the air neither sow nor reap," he said softly, "yet our Father feeds them. Shall he not feed us too?" David nodded, half understanding, but faith is sometimes born in the hearts of children before it grows in men. That night, they prayed together, father and sons, their voices trembling but sincere. Outside, thunder rolled in the sky as if heaven itself was listening. Days later, Pastor Daniel came to visit. His smile was warm, but there was something false beneath it, like light from a cracked lantern. He spoke long about blessings, promotions, and open doors. He quoted scriptures like charms, each twisted to fit his counsel. "Brother Abraham," he said, "God does not delight in your suffering. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. Sign the papers and be free. What good is holiness if your children starve?" Abraham looked at him quietly. Then he rose and fetched his worn-out Bible. He opened it to Luke 14:27 and read aloud, his voice steady. "Whosoever will be my disciple must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." He closed the book. "Pastor," he said gently, "I have chosen that path." Something in Pastor Daniel's smile broke. He left quickly, muttering, "If you cannot beat them, join them." But Abraham whispered to the empty room, "If I cannot beat them, I will stand alone, with God." The wind outside sighed through the broken window pane, as though heaven itself answered. And that is enough. That same evening, hunger sat with them at the table. David's plate was empty. Joshua had not returned. Abraham looked at his sons' faces, one filled with trust, the other lost in rebellion, and he prayed again. Not for bread this time, but for faith. Meanwhile, in a corner of the city, Joshua was running out of excuses. The girl named Esther had become a mirror he could not avoid. Her words haunted him. Without him, you have nothing. He remembered his father's prayers, his mother's songs. Something inside him broke open like a gourd, old pain spilling into new grace. That night, in the small corner of his room, he fell to his knees and whispered the name he had once mocked, Jesus, and though no light appeared, he felt the quiet warmth of forgiveness settle over him, like dawn creeping through a night that had lasted too long. Far away, Abraham stirred in his sleep. He dreamed of a field where dry plants began to sprout again. And in the dream, he heard a voice say, "The prodigal has turned." The next morning dawned clear, but there was no peace in the air. A message came from the company's head office. Mr. Abraham Edward was to appear before the board. The news spread through the building like harmattan fire through dry grass. Some whispered that his stubborn holiness had finally met its end. Others pitied him quietly, afraid to be seen on his side. When he entered the boardroom, silence fell. Men in suits sat behind polished tables. Their eyes were cold, their pens sharp. On the desk before him lay two files, one thick, one thin. The chairman, the same man who once told the story of the elephants and the rat, leaned forward with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Mr. Edward," he began, "we respect you. But you have become a stumbling block in this company. We have two choices before you. 1. Sign this budget, and you keep your job, with due rewards. 2. Reject it, and you are dismissed. He paused, letting the words hang like a blade. The room smelled of tension and cologne. Abraham said nothing for a long moment. Then, with a calmness that comes only from surrender, he spoke. I am indeed an accountant, but not only of this company. I serve the kingdom of God in this place. Every figure I sign, I must one day account for before him. If I lose this job for truth, he will provide another. But if I lose my soul for comfort, no man can restore it. The men shifted uneasily. The chairman's smile hardened. Greater than so you choose the road of poverty. I choose the road of peace. The gavel came down. You are dismissed. Abraham gathered his papers quietly, bowed slightly, and walked out. As he left, some eyes followed him, some in contempt, others in secret reverence. Because every man, even the wicked, recognizes light when it refuses to die. That evening, he returned home. Joshua was waiting, his eyes red, his heart humbled. Father, he said, his voice trembling, I've been wrong. I turned from God, but he did not turn from me. Abraham said nothing. He only held his son, long and firm, as though by that embrace he was gathering all the lost years into grace. They prayed together, and the walls of that old house seemed to sigh with relief. For when a man's home becomes an altar, heaven draws near. 3 days later, a call came. Abraham answered with the caution of one used to bad news. Am I speaking to Mr. Abraham Edward? A formal voice asked. Yes, he said. This is the office of His Excellency, the Governor. Your name was recommended for the vacant post of Commissioner for Finance. The former occupant passed away, and your integrity has reached the ears of the state. Abraham stood still, unable to speak. He thought of his eviction notice, his children's hunger, the mockery of his peers, all the ashes from which this moment rose. Your appointment letter will be delivered tomorrow, the voice continued. Congratulations, sir. When the call ended, Abraham fell to his knees, trembling not from fear, but awe. He whispered, Lord, I kept my account clean, and you have balanced the ledger. That night, his house came alive. David danced around the small sitting room, shouting, Greater than Daddy, God has done it. Joshua stood in a corner, smiling through tears. Truly, he said, He gives beauty for ashes. Outside, the wind carried their laughter into the dark, laughter that sounded like the breaking of chains. The same landlord who once cursed them would later bow at their gate in greeting. But Abraham only smiled and said, Greater than it was never my doing. The judge of all accounts has spoken. The morning after his appointment, Abraham woke before dawn. The city was still sleeping. Even the cocks were quiet, yet his heart was loud with gratitude. He knelt by his old bed, the same bed that had heard his cries in hunger and despair. Lord, he whispered, You have proven yourself faithful. You did not deliver me from the fire. You walked with me through it. You did not stop the storm. You made me stand upon its waves. He wept not from sorrow, but from a joy that felt ancient and holy. By sunrise, visitors began to arrive. Neighbors, colleagues, even those who once mocked him. They came bearing congratulations and praise. But Abraham received them with calm humility. When a man stands for truth, he told them, he does not stand alone. God stands with him. And when God stands, even mountains must bow. He went to his new office later that week. The same men who had dismissed him now rose to greet him. The parable of the elephants and the rat had found its true ending. The rat had not stopped the elephants. He had outlived them. At home, the air was different. Joshua was renewed, his laughter clean, his heart set on higher things. He had joined the youth fellowship in church and often spoke to others about the mercy that found him. Father, he said one evening, I used to think God had forgotten us. But now I see, he was only writing slowly, not silently. Abraham smiled. Son, he said, God never writes a man's story with haste, he writes it with purpose. In time, David too grew, bright and upright like the morning his father prayed for. He would tell his friends in the schoolyard, "My father is the richest man I know, not because he owns much, but because he owes nothing to darkness." And the people of Adulo began to tell their own children the tale of the accountant who feared God more than gold. They would say, "Integrity does not shine like gold, but it lasts longer than it." In every generation, the world tempts men with two altars, one for God and one for gold. Many kneel before gold because it glitters in the sun. Few kneel before God because his reward waits in silence. But those who bow to God keep their accounts in heaven, and heaven never forgets. For when men bow to gold, they gain dust. But when men bow to God, even their ashes become incense before his throne. When you stand alone for truth, heaven stands beside you, and that is never truly alone.